Hello, I'm Alexis Williams, and welcome to Scaling Enterprise Agility, a podcast from Accenture and Atlassian, where we discuss how businesses can be really intentional about their ways of working. I'm joined by my co-host, Christian Kelly, and we're coming to you from the Atlassian Team 24 conference in Las Vegas. Today, we're joined by Meagan Demmin, Director of Delivery Enablement at Accenture, as she talks about Accenture's journey to enterprise agility. We hope you enjoy. Meagan, welcome back. Thank you so much. We're on to part 2 of our podcast with you. So last time we spent a lot of time talking about the foundations of enterprise agility, shared some context on the journey that global IT has been on within Accenture. And now I want to switch gears a little bit towards the resilience part of the journey. And so as we think about, continuous innovation, it doesn't just stop once you have the foundation set. So how are you in general thinking about sort of how you continually progress down your journey along the never-ending enterprise agility journey?
Right. At this point, with the foundation generally set, now it's really maturing our organization. And, the foundation was really more at the team level, maybe rolled up to a product. Mm-hmm. And now maturing that, it's getting into more of the portfolio layers of leadership and understanding and really progressing on objective and key result setting, which helps to reinforce the foundation that we've put in place.
Mm. And last time we were ending on the ideas around autonomy and collaboration. Let's pick that back up in resiliency around empowerment and team all the way up to leader level empowerment. You write about people-centered behaviors. Can you say a little bit more about what climbing taught you about that and how you're applying that within your journey now in CIO?
Absolutely. So people-centered behaviors can mean a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. In climbing, to me, it's the community. It's a very encouraging community. And again, I think we talked about in the last episode of trust and allowing people to own their climb and own their decisions. And that really enables people. And I think, again, you have to kind of feel agility to see that happen. And that's what I love about our journey is you start to see that happen. You start to see people owning their journey, talking about what they're doing, how they did it, and being really proud of how they're doing it. And then their customers are excited and engaged and saying things like, why haven't we always done it this way?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that to me means that we are doing those things that are enabling our people and keeping our people at the center, whether it's the people delivering or our customers consuming our services.
Mm-hmm. So just a quick follow-up to that. So I see that at the team level everywhere. And I also see in a lot of organizations that it tends to filter out when it gets to leaders because they're not in it every day feeling that.
Yeah.
What's your experience in your journey on getting leaders to feel that same journey along with the teams?
One of the things that we did very purposefully was celebrate. And we would celebrate, teams achieving this kind of foundational level of agility that we asked them to do. And we invited their leaders to these celebrations. So the leaders hadn't been really involved in the data. They knew what they were doing and they knew, why, they understand the purpose. But they hadn't really been involved in all of the things that the team did to accomplish it and maybe where they were and where they are now. And we literally took a moment, scheduled sessions, and had celebration calls with the leaders there and then let the team members tell their stories. And I've never smiled so much in these sessions. And I've had several leaders on the calls going, wow, this is really cool. I didn't realize, how much this really helped the team. And I think so making sure those leaders are engaged in even just those simple celebrations. They don't have to know all the details, right? But to see how it's impacting their teams and their delivery, I think is a really important part. And then also making sure that there's some transparency and really focusing on leadership authenticity. Mm-hmm. And one of the other things that we did was ask our leaders to tell their own agility story. So I have my rock climbing as my hobby that helps me sort of feel agility. We have another leader who talks about riding a bike and how that's like how they think about agility or pole vaulting, or these various different things that people have brought from their own experience as leaders. And I think that's really helped teams to also engage.
I think the celebrating of success is huge. CK and I, we would run sprints with the team, and then after we would do retros. And one of the biggest things that would come up continuously was we need to celebrate our wins. Like, we need to make sure that we are doing that. I think it's really important to keep the team's morale up, but also it also, I think, abates some of the fatigue that might end up happening within the team. So I think that's incredibly important. But on the flip side of it, one of the things I also want to talk about is sort of creating friction, right? I love the concept of constructive agitation, right? And how that can propel you above and beyond what you're doing. And so you talk about good friction as well. How do you think about that?
I think good friction is important, right? Mm-hmm. It's about mindset at the end of the day, and we get stuck in our ways, right? We get comfortable. Yeah. And if we don't have, a different perspective, sometimes pushing us, we're just going to go right back to the comfort zone. Yeah. We're always comfortable. This is how we're doing it. I know this is less risky in my mind. I'm going to do it this way. And having, a coach or someone else to say, maybe you should try doing it this way. Mm-hmm. Have you tried it yet? Versus just saying, that's not for me, right? And really pushing and even in our case, creating data points and reports that reinforce the behaviors that we're looking at. Yeah. It helps to say, okay, well, now I have to do it. I have to try. Sometimes you need a little bit of have to try in order to get people to get out of their comfort zones. And
so that goes back to, in our first podcast, we started diving into systems. And I love that. But I want to follow up on something else that you've shared with me, and sort of current themes meme. Dune is out, right? And the whole thing in Dune is fear is the mind killer. I know that you have a view on mindsets and fear and overcoming fear at multiple levels. Like, say more about, I know you talk about it in terms of climbing, and then you talk about it in terms of how you've worked with the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so one of my blogs I called it Mindset is a Superpower. Because it absolutely is. And I wrote it right after something happened while I was climbing. I had been climbing for, a year or so, and I was progressing in the grades of routes that I climb. They're kind of graded. And I was working on a new grade, a new level. And I kept getting close to the top. I mean, so close I could literally feel like it was right there. I just couldn't reach it. And I don't, after unpacking it, I know why I was struggling with it, but I was scared. Yeah. I did not trust the system. I'd been climbing with the same climbing partner for a good year. It's the same person, same harness. I know the rope is safe. Like, there was nothing unsafe about my situation, but the move it felt very unnerving, because I had to really let go of everything and just jump to reach this hold. And I couldn't get past it. And I was really frustrated. And I just said, you know what? I'm just not strong enough. And I just kept telling them to bring me down. And then I said, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to work on this one muscle group. And I think that'll help me. And so I did one gym session and worked on this muscle group. And then a few days later, I went back to the climbing gym. And I said, you know what? Today's my day. I'm going to climb this route. And I did. I absolutely did. And it wasn't because I had the one gym session with the, working on the one, like, that did nothing to increase my strength. I literally just changed my mind. That's all I did. There was nothing I did other than I decided to do it. And then I wrote that blog because, it's really important when you're doing, an agile transition or enterprise transformation. Sometimes things are challenging, but you have to understand what your goal is and don't give up. You have to persevere, and you literally have to choose to do that. If you kind of let things happen to you, you're probably not going to reach your goal. You have to really make a concerted effort to choose to reach your goals.
It's a bit about going on offense too. And so in sort of, the cornerstones of as you're going along the journey, I mean, mindset, of course, is huge. Is there any other portions of turning those cornerstones that you see are incredibly critical as well?
I think becoming educated as well on what's happening. So when you're doing, an enterprise agility transformation, again, we talk about maybe leaders being a little bit far removed, right? They really shouldn't be far removed because, again, we talk about systems, right? And everything's connected, right? We're really trying to connect everything together. Yeah. And if you're too far removed or you haven't taken the time to really become educated about how those systems work, it makes it hard to trust the system, and then you're risk averse, and then everything sort of goes back to that comfort zone again. And so I think, just being, trusting the system, being really educated on what's happening will really help.
So we find over and over again, so I'm going to continue to ask questions about it, that people hit the wall at the mid-level leader to executive leader level. And you said something that really struck me about, I just decided to do it. So it's a it's a mindset thing. And then if I look at organizations as organisms, because they are, how do you jump the gap? I'll call it the dino move. We talk about that in climbing. How do you jump the gap between individuals and maybe even at the team level, learning to be introspective and get to that ledge, and then leaders supporting them to do it? Like, how do we get the whole organization, in your experience, to adapt together, to make the mindset change together?
Very thoughtfully, right? I mean, you need to understand where those frozen pieces are, and really challenge why. And I spent a lot of time asking, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? What are we afraid of, right? Is there a business risk? Okay, let's talk about that, right? Let's understand what that is, and is it really a risk, or do you just think it is because it's different, right? And so really having conversations with people to understand what's driving that behavior to not want to move or try something different.
So put out the hard things.
Yeah.
Just like put them out there and start dealing with them.
Transparency. Like why can we not do this? What is stopping us? And a lot of times there isn't an answer for that.
No, it's just new and it's different. And so it does remind me a little bit of embracing the suck, right? And I think that goes to the mindset superpower. So how do you think about that? Because it does feel like in order to like really jump that gap, you're going to just have to embrace the suck. Things are going to be different. They're going to, but it will end up being for the better. And to your point earlier, most of the time organizations come back anyways, and they're, why didn't we do this sooner?
Yeah, try. I mean, that's I say try it. So try it and see what happens. Even if you try it in a smaller, more confined bit of what you're doing, try it, see what happens. But a lot of times you literally have to experience that. But I will tell you, with the pace of technology, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, change isn't going to slow down.
Right.
It's never going to slow down. It's just going to keep getting faster. So if we can't handle, this much change, how are we going to handle more? Yeah. And so to me, it's like you just have to sort of get your mindset into that frame of change is always happening to me now. And so how do I consume that? How do I get my mind around that and continue to just be curious all the time versus being stuck in a certain way, right? And again, really evaluating risk. What is the real risk you're trying to avoid by not doing something or not trying something? And then how do you mitigate that? It just goes back to, old school risk mitigation, right?
So if you went back 4 years, 5 years, at the starting of the journey, well, first, context for my question. We, in our job, go around all around the world, talk to hundreds of people about this, and I'm always surprised. I'm going to say something controversial, I usually do. I'm always surprised that people start this journey, and I ask them simple questions, like, what's in it for me for the senior leader? Have you designed a value case? Do you know what metrics you're moving? FONs, move the metric. What metric are you moving? And they're like, nope. I'm just going along the journey, and we're going to do some really cool stuff, and then people will figure it out. And I'm like, you have no plan for what it is, the journey that you're going on. You're trying to climb a mountain. You have no plan for how you're going to get there. So that's optimistic, but it's not a plan.
Hope is not a strategy.
Hope is not a strategy. And so
sure.
I look at this because there's so much organizational change that comes into this space. That's my context, not to pontificate, but if you went back 3-4 years and said, what would you tell you to somebody who's starting that now? What would it look like?
I would say that you need to envision what it looks like at the end, right? Right now, think about what do you, the headline exercise. What do you want your headline to be, right? And then what are the important parts of that story for you? And then that way you can ensure that you can tell what's in it for me, and you can start to measure things. That's exactly what we did. I mean, when we first started, we knew generally, because it's kind of industry standard stuff we were thinking about, right? It's like, okay, well, generally we know what we want to get out of this. But we did have to sit back for a minute and say, what does that headline look like? What's our vision, right? And then what are the things we want to measure? And we focused on agility, quality, and speed, right? Our lead time, we wanted to make sure that as we went faster, that our quality didn't suffer, right? We weren't causing more issues in production. And we wanted to make sure we were delivering faster and also layered in a little efficiency, right? Gains. And that's what we focused on, because you can measure all kinds of things. Right. But what is it that you want to measure, right? What's important in the journey for you? And it could be different for everyone.
I think the measure what matters is always a challenge to really figure out. A lot of times we think we're measuring what matters, but we're not.
Yeah. And
We've had that problem.
How many OKRs did it take us to get right?
I think we're on iteration 3, and we're maybe, we're going to get a 0.7.
4 years later.
For sure. And we even changed. We had one measure in there that after a while we were like, okay, that measure doesn't really make sense for us, right? And you do need to reevaluate that along the way. And it's okay to, because agility, right? You're learning, you're learning and you're iterating. And I think that's really important.
I love it. So we spent a lot of time talking about resilience. I really loved all of your insights. Thank you so much for the second episode here with us today, and really enjoyed talking with you about resilience in the organization.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us for Scaling Enterprise Agility, a podcast from Atlassian and Accenture. Thank you as well to our special guest, Meagan Demmin from Accenture, for sharing her insights today. You can check out more about Meagan, as well as the work Atlassian and Accenture are doing on enterprise agility, using the links in our show notes. We'll be back with more episodes soon. Follow us now in your podcast app, and you won't miss an episode.